everybody. Welcome. I'm here today in the Dreamscape Studios where we record a lot of the audiobooks and create the videos that you enjoy on Hoopla. I'm Lindsay Williams. I am the book club coordinator along with Tara Carberry, and I'm also the ebook lead for Hoopla Digital. So if you are not familiar with our book club, we pick a spotlight and 8 additional discussion-worthy books each quarter. You can see those on theclub.hoopladigital.com. Download discussion guides, and if you want to share with us how much you like the books, you can use hashtag Hoopla Book Club on social media. So today, I would like to announce to you the titles that we've selected for the first quarter of 2019. So let's get into it. Our Spotlight, which is the book that we develop discussion guides and exclusive author interviews, all kinds of things around. So really, you don't have to do anything for a book club meeting, but talk about the book. It's great. That title is The Orphan's Tale by Pam Jenoff. So this novel is the absolute archetype of great book club fiction. It delivers on all levels. You can really count on impactful reading, so impactful that I hunkered down in a single weekend and read the whole thing. And you can also count on a really animated and great discussion when you reach your book club meeting. Jenoff's novel, A Friendship, is set in a traveling circus during World War II, and it introduces to us 2 extraordinary women which have really harrowing circumstances. So the book's 2 main characters, Astrid and Noah, are faced with impossible scenarios as they struggle to survive in Nazi Germany. Noah encounters a train car of stolen infants, while Astrid is forced into a state-ordered divorce because she's Jewish, and then when she returns home, she finds her entire family has vanished. And those are just the opening chapters of this book. It's a great book. It was recommended by Tara, our content strategist, and I really love the way that Tara described the book in her Why We Love letter. So for each spotlight title, we write a letter about why we loved it, so you can decide if it's right for your book club, which you can download on the book club site. But Tara explained it so much better than I could. So to quote Tara, it so quickly becomes clear that the stakes are impossibly high and any wrong move can be fatal in the powder keg environment of the Third Reich. Pam Jenoff's deep historical research for this book allows her to fully bring this period to life, showing how the fear and the menace of the Nazi regime infuse into every aspect, coloring her characters' every decision and interaction. Yet the beauty of this book is the way that the unlikely friendship that develops between Astrid and Noah is able to cut through the deep shadow over their lives. It's a heartbreaking story, but one that is ultimately about the power of that bond. So Pam Jenoff, the author, used the quote of a real-life German circus executive, Adolf Althoff, who saved people in the Nazi era by having them work and travel with his circus. She used his quote kind of as a springboard for her novel, and that was, "We circus people see no difference between races or religions." So when talking about her book, The Orphan's Tale, Pam said she considers the book, while fiction, to be a tribute to the courage of the people. And her deep research and background with World War II shines just as bright as her great writing for The Orphan's Tale. And Tara and I just talked about this book for months afterwards. So I'm so thrilled for you to read it. I would love to hear what you have to say about it. You can use hashtag Hoopla Book Club to share with us. Go to theclub.hoopladigital.com. You can download an exclusive interview with Pam Jenoff, the discussion guide, the Why We Love letter, and also a book club companion meeting guide. So this is basically like a whole book club meeting, a whole evening that's planned for you. You just follow the steps, and all you have to do is sit back and enjoy the discussion. I hope you love it. We even put together a list of recommended next reads, which includes some extra circus books. Enjoy. Similar to our spotlight title, The Orphan's Tale, our next book, If You Leave Me by Crystal Hana Kim, is also a chronicle of war, but it differs in 2 ways. One, rather than being about World War II, this is a book about the Korean War. And second, it's a little bit more contemporary in that instead of it all taking place during the war, it follows our characters through 16 years post-war, through decades and generations. So not only is If You Leave Me a tale of forbidden love between 2 sides, within your book club, it'll also be a launch point for discussions around immigration, as it truly paints a very moving portrait of refugee life. Other themes explored in the book that your club could sink into include the consequences of not following your heart and what to do when sometimes choices that seem quite bad are just necessary. And in regard to the choices, you'll discuss periods of time and place where choices really weren't possible at all. And further, the ways that women have adapted in environments where choices didn't exist. And in our main character's case, perhaps what it's like to be kind of born before your time and the heartbreak that can cause. The Seven Torments of Amy and Craig by Don Zolidis. So the audiobook for The Seven Torments was recorded right here where I sit in Dreamscape Studio by Pete Cross, and it is awesome. So any book that you pick up from the Hoopla Book Club is available in both ebook and audio, so you can enjoy it however you want. So why we love this book. First, sorry to anybody who has like a teeny tiny little bit of teenage heartbreak left in their heart, because this one's going to sting a little. Craig, our protagonist, is a Dungeons and Dragons dude whose 7 torments are all caused by his on-again, off-again girlfriend, Amy, who keeps breaking up with him again and again and again and again until it's insanity and a little hilarious, right? Like they're already breaking up for the 5th time on page 19. That's how crazy it is. Absolutely crazy. So this young adult book appeals really to everybody. I mean, both boys and girls, but I think even adults, like anyone who's learned the hard way that insanity is just trying the same thing over again, even though you know it's not going to work. So that probably sounds familiar, right? It does to me. The writing and the dialogue is absolutely sparkling. So this book was written by Don Zolidis, who is a playwright. And before I worked at Hoopla, I worked at an arts high school, and we produced several of Zolidis' plays, so I really love his work. He's going to be a recognizable name to young readers, especially those who love theater, and the book is just great. So nothing can describe the welcome over-the-topness of Craig and Amy's relationship like an excerpt can. So here, in what I'm about to read, Craig and his sister are discussing his most recent breakup with Amy, and his practical sister's solution, and maybe the right one, is to give up, right? But Craig thinks he needs something much more grandiose to win Amy back. He needs a grand gesture, right? It's like the thing you see in movies. Someone's running through an airport, they're running in their underwear, they're biking down a really steep hill, whatever. Craig thinks he needs something like this. So here are Craig's top 5 ideas for a grand gesture, quoted from the book. Possible grand gestures. Boombox, overhead. Already been done. Also, I had no boombox, plus it was 2:30 in the morning. I had to be quiet. 2. Show up in a Winnie the Pooh costume. This idea was terrible, but I was brainstorming and trying not to throw anything out. Number 3. Break into her house. This seemed the most plausible, but what would I do when I succeeded at that? Number 4. Compose a poem on the way to her house. I tried this, but I'm no good at poems, and it sucked. Number 5. Wing it. So you will just have to read or listen to The 7 Torments of Amy and Craig to find out which grand gesture did or did not work for Craig. Next up is Snap by Belinda Bauer, which was also produced by Dreamscape, and book clubs have really been loving our mystery thriller picks, which are often some of the top borrowed books in our book club selections. This one is excellent, so excellent, in fact, that Snap was chosen as a finalist for the prestigious Man Booker Award, which is a rare honor for a crime novel. It's about a teen boy on the hunt for his mother's killer, and I found a review quote that I think just really explains this book quite well. How in the world did Belinda Bauer create this 14-year-old Robin Hood of a cat burglar who stole my heart? I absolutely love this utterly satisfying read. My gotta know nodded with overwhelming sympathy for the victimized, and Snap gripped me to the last page. That was from Randy Susan Myers, who's the best-selling author of The Widow of Wall Street. Bauer's inspiration for her book came from an article on the murder of Marie Wilkes, which is an unsolved crime that left Marie's young sister and Marie's infant son on the side of a motorway in search of her. And so the author, when she read that story, was really struck by the fact that no one slowed down to help these kids on the side of the highway. And so the author, Belinda, really skips the gore and picking apart the murderer to instead follow 3 fictional siblings she's created as they navigate life while tracking down their mother's killer. So there's going to be a lot for your book club to talk about, especially about the way these children's lives changed in an instant or in a snap. So we are including a graphic novel pick each quarter for the Hoopla Book Club based on feedback from libraries that clubs around graphic novels and comics just continue to grow and skyrocket. So our next pick, which is Lighter Than My Shadow by Katie Green, covers eating disorders and related recovery. It's appropriate for teens as young as grade 9, though we do, of course, caution trigger warnings. This graphic novel has one of the broadest audiences of any we've presented yet for book club. And after I read it, I also think really it's a great book for adults. Whether you are a parent looking for insight on how to approach related issues with your own kids, or maybe someone just recovering from a past wound about anything, or still on a journey to becoming more body positive. So Library Journal calls Lighter Than My Shadow an essential add to any library's graphic novel collection. I hope that honor feels richly rewarding for Katie Green, who spent nearly 5 years not only writing, but illustrating all of this graphic novel. I hope she feels rewarded knowing that Library Journal loves it, and we love it. So at 500 pages, you can see for a graphic novel, right, this is a biggie. It looks a little bit intimidating, but for its physical heft, it packs so much emotional power, which you can really almost see. So from the pages, Katie illustrated each pane. So depending on the emotion in the pane, whether it was dark or light, it's kind of illustrated that way. So you can kind of see the book going back and forth from a little darker to a little more hopeful. She illustrated those shifting hues, whether she's hiding uneaten toast in her bedroom, to Weeks to Live, and back again. The book is just a true exploration of the road to hopefulness and happiness that anybody can relate to. So let's talk about our next book. It's about a guy you might have heard of. Mr. Rogers, ring a bell? Yeah. I hope you'll be our neighbor and read this book alongside of us as it brings Mr. Rogers to life through everyday moments recalled by those closest to him. Certainly it's a biography, but I really think Mr. Rogers fits into the category of self-help, right? So if you've not nailed down a 2019 resolution, maybe you could just resolve to be kind and read Mr. Rogers for a few pointers. You'll be reading alongside thousands of book club members who've already picked this up this quarter. It seems we've got Mr. Rogers fever, to quote a recent Rolling Stone op-ed, which is not such a bad fever to have, right? So on the topic of Mr. Rogers and self-help, I'll leave you with one of my favorite quotes from our neighbor himself. What matters isn't how a person's inner life finally puts together the alphabet and numbers of his outer life. What really matters is whether he uses the alphabet for the declaration of war or the description of a sunrise, his numbers for the final count at Buchenwald, or the specifics of a brand new bridge. Mr. Rogers, read it. So we have two really great books about great neighbors in our book club this quarter. We have The Good Neighbor, which is, of course, about Mr. Rogers, but we also have No Good Asking, which focuses on a great set of neighbors. It's by Canadian author Fran Kimmel, and it's about a fictional family called the Nylands. So the Nylands are a strained family. They're living in the Royal Plains of Canada, and the book is a tale about how helping other families in need can be a catalyst to heal our own. The Nylands they're a struggling couple. They take in a neighbor's child in the midst of the chaos that ensues. They find a compassion that's really like a salve over years of tiny heartbreaks they've amassed. And it's just a really beautiful book. Fran's writing is so very good. The characters are brilliantly drawn. I mean, you're just instantly rooting for them. And her sense of place just really brings us right into this rural Canada community. It brings us into the snow, into this family's living room. A lot of it takes place during the holidays, so it feels very warm. I just felt like I was sitting at the dinner table with the Nylands while I was reading this book. It's a smart, quietly strong demonstration of human spirit, and I highly, highly recommend No Good Asking. I want to talk about An Unkindness of Ghosts by River Solomon, this book. First, some accolades. Publishers Weekly and Library Journal selected An Unkindness of Ghosts as a best sci-fi and fantasy book. Bustle picked it among their best fiction, and it landed a coveted spot on Chicago Public Library's Best of the Best list. And by the way, River Solomon, the author, has been called the literary child of Octavia Butler, and they've also earned comps to Ursula Le Guin and Margaret Atwood. So you should probably read it. The book covers a genre we've not yet included in book club, which is space opera, so that's certainly unique. The book follows our main character, Astor, around the HSS Matilda, which is a generation ship containing the last survivors from Earth, which is pretty much destroyed. They're supposedly sailing toward a promised land, but it's already taking generations. And in the process, their ship has sadly been organized like the antebellum South. The decks are organized alphabetically, and the closer to Z your deck is, the darker your skin is, the scarcer your services and resources are, the more violence you're subjected to, the harder you labor, and really the closer your deck resembles a slum than really safe living quarters. Astor, though, is valuable. She's a wise scientist, and she's been taken on as a surgical assistant. And so with this intelligence and this usefulness and just great science mind and her powerful androgynous frame, she wields a bit of power in this society. And so with that power, she has the chance to decide if she wants to sow the seeds of civil war, which may be the only way that the people on her deck, her community, might have their conditions improved. So we have a lot to talk about with this book: race, class, gender, disadvantage. Rivers has built a truly unique world in an Unkindness of Ghosts, but in a lot of ways it still sadly mirrors our own. And so that will be your difficult but important and really moving book club conversation to have. I want to talk to you guys about Small Fry by Lisa Brennan Jobs. This book is so good. So good. It's sad, but it's good. A little backstory. I was perusing one of my favorite little local bookstores recently. Shout out to Gathering Volumes with my best friend. And this is my best friend forever since like 7th grade. So I really, really know her, right? I know her. She works in UX and design and is a total techie. So when we walked past Steve Jobs' biography, I said, "You've read this, right? How is it?" And she goes on to say that she hasn't read it because she doesn't appreciate his leadership style. She thinks he treated people unfairly, and she doesn't really aspire to be like him whatsoever, which I thought was surprising for someone who works in tech, but a totally fair response, right? So fast forward to a week later when I discovered that Steve Jobs' daughter, Lisa Brennan Jobs, has written a book about her father. So I request an ARC. Thank you, Grove Atlantic, because now my whole world is like upside down. I don't know my best friend. I don't know anybody. So here's the thing about this book. Yes, it's tragic. Yes, Steve Jobs' parenting style is not what we would call ideal. It does paint him in a dark light. But the book is first refreshingly strong literary merit-wise for a debut and for a memoir. But second, it's written in a style where Lisa is really sharing her memories as she remembers them in the given time period, which was in a rapidly changing Silicon Valley. Lisa's sharing in such a matter-of-fact way that she's not really presenting the reader with judgments in retrospect, and I thought that was such a graceful way to approach memoir writing. So this careful approach really leaves it up to your book club to discuss the impacts of each parent-child interaction and reaction. And so rather than a book that ends up feeling like a burn campaign, you can just read the book and talk with your book club about your own reactions and opinions. And that really open space that Lisa has left us with makes for a powerful book club meeting. All right, guys, those are all the books that I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening along. Again, you can read any of these in ebook or audiobook. Go to theclub.hoopladigital.com to borrow the books, to see our discussion guides, get your recommended next reads. And if you are reading along with us, please tell us what you think of the books. You can use hashtag Hoopla Book Club on social media to share, and enjoy. Happy reading.